Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining us again. This is episode 3 of our last Taboo series, and I'm really happy to be joined by Sheila Morgan and Fiona Castle, two very good friends who have agreed to come on here and speak about their experience with grief and bereavement. And we're also going to look at our book today, because this is the one that Fiona's actually shared quite a lot of her memories and experiences in, when she's been talking about Roy, who she lost 28 years ago. And it's really been a big bonus for us to have her share that with us over the years. And it's something I've learned a lot from her experiences of dealing with that, but also living life to the full in the midst of grief. And she's been a real great witness to lots of people and still travels around talking, don't you, Fiona? You still travel as much as you can, giving talks about all sorts of things. But this has been something that has been a massive encouragement to people. So thank you for sharing this, Fiona. And Sheila is Rhiannon's mom. As many of you know, Sheila lost her husband, Brian, just under a year ago, September, wasn't it, Sheila? Yes. And I watched the funeral online. It was amazing. It was such an inspiring funeral, if there's such a thing. And it was just wonderful to see all the amazing impact that he's had in your hometown and the church and everything. So many people came, didn't they, and watched from all over the place. That was the benefit of having it online. So that's all very fresh for Sheila, and obviously for Fiona it's been a lot longer. But what we've been talking about in preparation for this is how grief doesn't go away, it just changes over the years. So we're hoping that they can both give some insights into that for all of us, so that we're more prepared, but also so that we're more sensitive to the needs of others. So we found 3 devotions out of the book that we're going to hang all our comments off this morning. And the first one is going to be read by Fiona, and it is, all 3 have been written by Fiona, but the first one is going to be read by Fiona too. And it's day 55 in our book, and it's called Be Trusting. So she'll read that out, and then we'll just share a little bit of what we thought about that devotion.
The Bible verse is, "Don't be afraid, for I am with you." And that's from Isaiah 41, verse 10. I was once interviewed as part of a program about singleness. There were people who had never married, some who were divorced or separated, and some who longed to meet their life partner. Nowadays, I'm happy in my single state, but being widowed was a tremendous shock. Not only did I have to do the work of 2 people initially, I had to master a whole new set of skills such as DIY and finance. And I found social events really hard at first when I had to face them alone. That might sound pathetic to those who've always been single, but it was a real hurdle for me. Others told more painful tales of loss and of shouldering burdens of family sickness and disability. But some stories had a happy ending when new partnerships were formed. Not all stories have a happy ending. Not all our prayers and longings are answered in the way we hope. Yet prayer is a vital part of our relationship with God. And He invites us to bring Him all our needs and to trust Him for the outcome. That way, we grow in faith and learn to make each day count for the kingdom. Then there at the end is, "Lord, I trust you to answer my prayers, knowing that you are in control of my life, even if the answer isn't the one I would have chosen."
Okay, right. So what do you think, Sheila? Did this speak to you while you were reading it? I know you've been reading the devotions every day anyway. So what did you feel when you when you read that one? Did that speak to you in any way?
Well, I read this in May, just after the weekend away, isn't it? And 55 days after the weekend away. And what really struck me is how Fiona was able to say, nowadays, in my single state, and she was talking about being happy, and that really spoke to me. I'm happy in my single state, and that really spoke to me, and I wrote it down in my journal. And I like to write in my journal at the top, "I choose to" each day, and underneath that I put, make a make each day count. So that's what I'd written that day from what Fiona had said. And I was thinking about the weekend away at Activate, and we'd been on the Saturday morning. I had to speak at the devotional, and I gave a story about on my birthday how my friend had taken me out for tea, and how we were laughing and having so much fun. And one of my friends said, "We should do this again." And we said, "Oh yeah, we'll do it again." I said, "But this time we'll all invite a friend." And so there and then we all got together and making this plan about how we would do it, when we would do it, and where we would do it. And so the third Tuesday of every month, we were going to meet for tea and each invite a friend. Some people who don't go to church, some people who are in the church, but you may see them sitting by themselves. And so we made a start to do this. And about the same time, I was asked to contact 2 people in the community who had lost their husbands about the same time I'd lost mine, and they weren't church-going people. And the first friend I contacted, this person I contacted, we got on so well on the phone, and she invited me to her friendship group to go out for lunch together. So I went into their friendship group, went out for lunch with them, and I then invited her back to my friendship group, and she came to the first one that we had the next month. And then I met this other second lady, and I was talking to her, and we got on so well. And I said, "You'll have to come up to our house for tea. We have some friends around." And so she came as well the following month. And so each month, different people have been coming as well with other people. And then this month, which is tomorrow, we've got another lady who wants to come, and she has been bereaved as well in these last 12 months. And she's going to join us for the first time. And so you were so inspiring, Fiona, about what had happened to you and how you were and how you lived your life, that it really inspired me. And it was really very helpful, my love, very helpful indeed.
Well, I think that's wonderful that you've made the effort to move forward and to do something that doesn't just help you, but it helps other people. Mm-hmm. And it inspires other people not to always be looking inwards with self-pity, but moving forwards, realizing there's more to life.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because we can get stuck with our grief and feel full of self-pity. And that's something that I knew I had to deal with right at the beginning. Right. I had a lovely experience a couple of weeks after Roy died. His book was published, his autobiography. They couldn't manage to get it done before he died. And so I was asked to do quite a few bits and pieces, to publicize it. And one of them was to go over to Northern Ireland to be interviewed on a program about it. And I came back the next day, and you know how you you get off the aeroplane and you go out, and then there's all these taxi drivers with signs saying, who they're supposed to be meeting. And this woman was walking ahead of me all the way through, and then she just fell into the arms of whoever it was that she loved. And they met, and they were kissing and embracing and hugging one another. And I stood behind her and I just sobbed. And I said, "Oh, I haven't got anybody to come and meet me at the airport anymore. I've got to get onto a bus and go to the long-term car park and get in the car and drive home to an empty house. And I haven't got anybody to care about me anymore." And I was just sobbing. And I was saying this aloud. People must have thought I was totally bonkers. But God spoke into that moment and said, "That is self-pity."
Wow.
Tears of grief are fine, but tears of self-pity will lead you to depression. Mm. And I thought, I'm not going down that road anymore. So I said, "All right, Lord, I'm going on, and I won't be filled with self-pity anymore." And I marched on. And again, I didn't care that people thought I was totally mad. But it was a changing moment in my life at that time.
Yeah. Wow. Dear me.
And Fiona, do you feel that that is something you can say to someone, or is it something you've got to decide for yourself at the right moment? Because that's something I'm hearing thinking, wow, that's amazing, but I don't know if I could cope with someone telling me, come on, just climb out of your grief. Is it something you need to have come to at that moment yourself, or should we be encouraging people in a gentle way to do that?
Well, I think it depends on the conversation. As Sheila says, she's got a group of people and they can discuss it in a way that I've just told you that story for me. How people deal with it is up to them. And I would never say, oh, you mustn't allow, carry on like that, because that's no good, because everybody deals with it in a different way and at a different time. But if that can help somebody, then it's worth it. But it has to be dealt with very, very gently and carefully.
So the key is to tell your story first, not try and tell them to do certain things or act. So if you tell your story, then they take from it what they need to. So I'm just going to read a few bits from this devotion, day 355. And it starts, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. 1 Chronicles 16:34. And the sentence that has actually inspired the episode today is, when my husband died, I realized early on that there's no blueprint for bereavement. Everyone is different. And the idea of the blueprint is the plans that we have that we should be following. And you feel as a parent or somebody at work that you've got lists of things that you tick off and follow, but that we shouldn't feel that when it comes to loss and grief, and that we kind of just have to be guided through what's appropriate for us at the time. And there's times when I've spoken to people who have lost loved ones many, many years ago, and the grief is still there. They still start to cry when they talk about the person, and they still feel very emotional about it. And that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because we are still meant to feel those things. But I had seen a video about this where somebody dropped a big blob of black onto the middle of a page, and they said that's what the grief feels like, but that it doesn't stay looking like that. And then she kept painting different coloured circles around the blob of black, and she said, as you move through the grief, it's still there. It doesn't mean you move away from it and start a whole new page. That page with that blob of black on is going to be there, but that you can paint lots of beautiful colours around it. And I guess the experience of carrying on after that person has gone does allow you to paint those colours. And that's where the rest of us can actually help with that. We can help be part of that lovely, colourful image that's being created around that grief, so it can turn into something a lot better. And I know I've shared before that my mother-in-law died on the same day my third child was born. And I was very angry at first, because it felt like it was going to pollute that memory, and it was going to ruin his birthday, and it was going to be, why would that have to happen on the same day? But actually, it was just an image of life and death. We're all so close to both, really, and it was something that has just made the family stronger, because we could all celebrate this new life as we were commiserating and being sad with each other about the loss of my husband's mother. And she was somebody that was very special, and we still talk about her a lot. And even though he's never met her, and my children don't really remember her very well, that it lives on. And it's something about people's memories living on as well, if you can make them stay alive by talking about them lots. And I know Rhiannon posted a lovely video on Brian's birthday, didn't she, Sheila, of him opening the socks. And she put little memories on, and my mum mentioned, oh, that's really lovely to have seen him and seen what he was like, because she's heard us talking about him. So that kind of thing is important, to let people do it, isn't it? To let people talk about the person they've lost and not feeling uncomfortable. I've always found it difficult and think I'm going to cry if the person starts talking about their lost husband or whatever, and you're not needing to feel uncomfortable about that, but just being happy with the emotions that come out, because it's all part of the tapestry of life and death, isn't it? So I mean, that really helped me, and that's why I wanted to call this topic, this particular episode, There's No Blueprint for Bereavement. And at the end, Fiona, you say, I determined that I would have a heart of gratitude rather than despair. You talk about the experience at the airport where you started to cry, and you felt they were tears of self-pity, not sadness. And that you said here, pull yourself together, woman, I said out loud. Be grateful that you've had 31 years of a wonderful marriage. Now get back to the car and go home. And I did. I love the straightforwardness of that. And we do have to give ourselves a sharp talking to, because sometimes even when something minor goes wrong in the day, you can sit there wallowing, can't you, and realise that actually you're just in a pit of self-pity.
Mm-hmm.
And you've put here, count your blessings, name them one by one. From then on, I did so. I found if I thanked God for all he had given me, my heart would start to sing.
Mm.
And I think that's a lovely image, isn't it? That your heart can be singing. And this is the idea that we're called to worship, even in the midst of hard times, that our hearts can sing for us almost. And the prayer says, Heavenly Father, your love and provision for me makes my heart sing, whatever the circumstances.
Mm.
That's lovely. It actually reminded me when you were talking about something that happened to me when my own mother died. And I'd be walking along the street. A lot of people knew my mother, and I'd watch people coming towards me and seeing me and cross over the road as quickly as possible so that they could avoid saying anything to me. And I realized the embarrassment that it can be to people who just don't know what to say. So when Roy died, I would see the same thing happen, and I would run across the road after them and say, hello, how are you? Just so that people realize that I was all right. And relax. I'm just still a human being. Don't worry about trying to say the wrong thing, or try to, make sure that you don't say something that offends. And a lot of people are worried about what they might say. And if you're worried about something, the best thing to say is, look, I don't know what to say to you, but I just want to give you a great hug and let you know that I love you. That'll do. It's just a question of support, really, at that particular time.
Yeah. No, that's really helpful. Have you found that, Sheila? Have you found that people are just sometimes very awkward, and just sometimes it would be easier for them to just talk normally to you about normal things? What's the best kind of thing you've had said, and the worst, probably?
I agree with Fiona. The best thing you could do is to say that to them, and that even if they don't know what to say, and them to explain what they feel, and then also to give you a big hug, because that's very important. I know it depends on the person, because but to me that was very important.
Yeah.
Very important. Yeah.
I think you're just hugging the person, that's showing you so much more than words, isn't it? It's been hard, obviously, over COVID. We couldn't all give each other big hugs, but that does seem to be the nicest way sometimes if you don't know what to say.
Yeah. And even I think a touch, even as a touch on the shoulder, depends how well you know the person. But I think some contact, it means a lot.
Yeah. How did you cope with all the text messages and messages? Did you find that was overwhelming when people were showing support, or was it nice to get, or is there a certain way to do it that's maybe less draining?
I think the hardest thing is when people say, how do you feel? Yeah, because unless you're in a relationship with a person and you have something with that person, you can't really say how you feel. So I just use it as a brush away thing, and brushed it away as much as that without being rude, and not saying any more than I needed to, type of thing.
So it's much nicer. It's a bit more sensitive to just send thinking of you, lots of love, without expecting a response.
Exactly. Yeah, a response is hard sometimes. Yeah. And I remember Rhiannon did once questions, I think quite a few questions of how to say to people, and it was just simple things like, have you had a good thought today? Something not too heavy. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of good things, and I often go back to that to think how I need to now treat other people.
Yeah.
It teaches you.
Yeah.
Yes, you learn a lot, don't you, going through it yourself?
True, Fiona.
I think one of the worst things that anybody can say is, I know exactly how you're feeling, because no, you don't. As you said, or was it Rhiannon who said, we all go through different things at different times, and there's no blueprint for bereavement. It's not because your husband died or somebody died 3 weeks ago, so this will be how you're feeling. No, everybody's different.
Yeah.
And have you found, Fiona, there is a pattern that you've kind of, if you look back over the last 28 years, are there periods of time that have been harder, and then some that have felt easier? And does it follow any pattern from anyone else you know, or is that just something that's personal to you?
Well, one thing that I'd love to say to Sheila is a warning, really, because you're just coming up to the first anniversary, which can be hard and will be hard. But people then think, oh, she's got through the whole year, so she'll be fine. And off they go, and they just think you're back to normal. And it's more or less you're left on your own to finish or to continue the grieving process and the moving forward process. So in a way, it's a warning to you that people will say, okay, she's okay now, we can carry on with our lives. Because that's how people see it. But actually, sometimes after that, because people have gone on their own way, doing their own thing, you feel even more lonely. And that's when you've got to have more courage and determination to get on with it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Fiona.
Yeah, and also the fact that you've made all these friends early on, maybe when you have that initial adrenaline, like not that long afterwards, because you were obviously caring for Brian for quite a long time as well, that the day to day, and then all of a sudden, this is what Esther said in a couple of episodes back, she just said it all suddenly becomes about you. It was all about him, and then all of a sudden it's all about you. And by going out there and doing that in a time when you suddenly did have this sort of unexplainable energy to do it, that it will now carry you more easily through the harder times, because you've got that circle of friends to support.
Yeah.
So that's really positive, isn't it, that you
Very
do that.
Very wise.
Yeah. Plus, we'll see you again soon at our next weekend away. We're looking forward to that already. Can't believe we're only 6 months off that. Well, 7 months. So, that's what I love about Activate, is all the different generations there. We can support each other, and it's really exciting to know that we'll be back together again, and we'll be able to, these kind of conversations carry on over many years, don't they, with the people that we meet when we go. So that's something that, we've got little things to put in place. And is that also, I guess, a nice thing to know that you've got things in the diary, that it's maybe good to just put those things in, so that I know one of my friends at the minute, she's having a difficult time, and she said to me, can you just always phone me on a Monday? Somebody suggested to her to get her main friends to just have a day when they are going to contact you, because she's feeling very lonely. And she said that if I know that I'm going to get one conversation a day, then that's fine, because I know I'm going to speak to somebody that night. So it felt a little bit of a pressure. I was worried at first, because I thought, oh no, what if I let her down and I forget to phone? But I just put a reminder on my phone, or, something, I've attached it to something else I already do, so that on those nights, on the Monday night, when I'm taking my oldest one to football, I know that on the way back, or while I'm waiting for him, I could speak to her. So for friends, it's maybe a nice thing to do, is to just think, okay, maybe they just need, because it's that, like you said, Fiona, when you're coming in from a day, you want to offload all the silly little things that have happened and the funny things. You're missing being able to share those with the person back at home. And the amount I rabbit on to John about stupid stuff when I've not seen other people, if I've been with other people at the school gates or whatever, and I can just rabbit on and talk, then I don't have to do as much of that to him, because I've still got those words to get out, but I can get them out to somebody else. So I can be that person for my friend when she needs that on a Monday night, and then another friend does it on a Tuesday night, and it's been really nice to have a routine. So maybe that's nice too, if we can just think of friends that maybe are feeling not, they might not be grieving, they might just be in a point where they've not got as many connections, and we could maybe attach a memory to phone them or speak to them on a certain night of the week.
That's a lovely idea. That's really thoughtful and caring.
Yeah.
Outward looking.
Yes, yeah, it is. So that's also an idea for anybody at any point. The last one we're going to look at is day 11. So we've all read this one because it's in the first few days of the book. Day 11, be comforted. So Fiona, if you wouldn't mind reading that one to us.
All right. The verses are from Isaiah 54, verses 4 to 5. Fear not, you will no longer live in shame. Don't be afraid. There is no more disgrace for you. You will no longer remember the shame of your youth and the sorrows of widowhood. For your Creator will be your husband, the Lord of heaven's armies, in his name. He is your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God of all the earth. When I was widowed, I found that different emotions attacked me at different times through the grieving process. One evening, I was acutely aware of the emptiness of my home, with no one to hug me. I felt so alone. But the next morning, I opened my Living Light, which is a book of daily Bible verses from the Living Bible, and there were the words that I needed. How amazing that the Lord knew exactly how I was feeling, and he provided the answer. Tears of relief flowed as I turned to him in my grief. I no longer felt alone. When we submit to God's will for the circumstances in our lives, we can know his peace and be grateful for his provision for us. You have turned my mourning into joyful dancing. You have taken away my clothes of mourning and clothed me with joy, which is a verse from Psalm number 30. And the prayer is, thank you, Lord, that I never need to feel alone because you are with me and you understand my needs. Amen.
So that one particularly I thought was a nice way to end, because I mean, we can't be everything to each other, can we? We can't always be the best friend, and we might forget to phone and we might say the wrong thing. But the point is, we've got to try and we've got to put ourselves out there and be there for each other. But at the end of the day, our strength comes from the Lord. And I think that devotion just sums that up, that we can always turn to him even when we're feeling very, very low. And I guess, Sheila, you've been finding keeping a journal when you've been reading these helpful, haven't you? So you can remind yourself.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. And I wrote this one on the 11th of March. It was just after the Activate weekend. And it just meant so much to me, Fiona. It really did. And I actually personalized it as well, because when it says about your Creator will be your husband, I put my Creator will be my husband. And it just changed your whole perspective, It really does. And then the verse you put up in Psalms that you read out, you have turned my mourning into joyful dancing and clothed me with joy. Those were two beautiful things that I just underlined. And at the end you put, you understand my needs. God understands our needs. And it's something to have someone who understands you, even though you can't physically talk to them. You know that he understands, and you could be talking to somebody and you probably had the same experience and you think, I'm wasting my time here, they're not listening. But it's not like that with God. You understand my needs. So how grateful are we to have that? So thank you, Fiona. That really blessed me, so much so that I photocopied it from the book, and I keep that. It meant so much to me. Thank you, Fiona. And I don't know if you remember, Fiona, when we're at the conference, the last Activate weekend, on the Sunday morning, right at the very end of the service, people were praying together, and you came over and you prayed with me, and we were praying for people to be blessed who read this book. Do you remember? No, well, I won't put you under pressure.
I'm together, yeah.
Yeah. And so at that time, what I didn't realize was how blessed I would be from it. We were praying for other people to be blessed, weren't we? But at that time, I didn't realize how blessed I would be. So I really say thank you, Fiona, very much.
And I thank all the other people who've contributed, including you, Rachel, because I've benefited from those as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
A real blessing.
Thank you, Fiona. Well, we really loved writing it, didn't we? And I hope a lot of people are keeping up with reading this. And it's not dated. You can just, as you can see, it's just day 1, day 2. So you don't have to feel that pressure of trying to keep up with the date. So anyone can start at any time, can't they? And I gave one to my neighbour because I'd been talking about writing and editing it, and she came round a couple of months later, and she just said, I don't know why, but every time I open this book, it seems to mean something to me, so I don't understand why. And she said, I haven't given you any feedback, but I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but I tend to just open the book anywhere, and nearly always it speaks directly into my situation. So those prayers have been answered, because we are just giving it to friends who are finding something in it that we didn't even know was really there. And I did say I'd been praying for that exact same thing to happen, so it was good for her to. She felt a bit strange about it and didn't know how to tell me, but I thought it was very brave of her to come and tell me that she'd got something out of the book. So everyone's finding it really helpful. So again, we'll talk more about this at the weekend, because we can share more stories of how it's impacting our friends and neighbours and ourselves when we meet up again in March. So I think that's a nice way to end, just a positive little bit of feedback for this book. And thank you so much for joining us this morning, and sharing those stories with us. It was really brave of you to come on. We'll have more episodes in this series in the next few months. We'll just keep adding to it, because I think a lot of people are benefiting from people sharing. So thank you for coming on and doing that.
It's a great joy.
Okay.
Yeah.